Yo, what up, everyone? I'm Austin Smith, and welcome to the Made Hoops podcast. Thank you all for tuning in today. We've got a very special guest with us in the building. I'm joined by two special guests, actually. We've got our guy, Rob Noonan, who's our event director and scout here at Made Hoops, but we've also got Coach T, a.k.a. Talen Watson, and she's the head coach for the 14U Maryland Bells, and she's also spent some time working with the Philly Rise program as well. So, Coach T, first off, we're glad to have you. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Good deal. Good deal. Well, Coach, you're off to a great start with Maryland Bell program so far this season. You've done some phenomenal things. You all obviously are a program that we've got our eye on here. But let me start off first. How does it feel being the winningest coach in May Girls League history championship wise?
It feels really good. I was blessed with some really, really good players and came across some really, really good families. And I don't know, I can't believe that one year we went undefeated and the next year we only lost one game. But a credit to those girls and me and my dad and just getting those groups together. It's competitive. It's just always been competitive for the past 4 or 5 years. So I always look forward to Made Hoops.
I love it. I love it. Well, you talked about it being competitive, and obviously to be at the success level where you at, it takes a lot of preparation. It takes a lot of time. Tell us about your journey. How did you get this far, Coach? What did you do to make it happen?
Well, fresh out of college, I did not want to coach or be around basketball at all. It was, yeah, I know. It was actually a parent who her daughter plays for Philly Rise now, but she was on the eighth grade team that won the championship. Anaya Jenkins, her mom kind of got me involved, and I was supposed to be a substitute coach for one weekend, and they ended up winning those games. And she was like, "Oh, you should stick around." So then I ended up being offered to coach with the Bells, and it's been a really, really good journey. I'm such a competitor. Like, oh my gosh, like I hate losing. Like, if we lose, I am not okay until I see that team again and then beat them, and I will hold that grudge for like years. And I'm trying to be better at that, but I'm such a competitor. But I've been blessed to where girls meet me halfway and meet the expectations of working hard and training. So yeah, but I'm super competitive.
I love it. Well, Coach, one thing about our May Hoop Circuit is clearly we try to match up some of the best of the best. Competition
Mhm.
level is always at a high. So from what you've seen during your time with the Maryland Bells, how has playing on the Made Hoop Circuit helped prepare your girls, your eighth grade girls, for high school when they transition that year after?
Sure. I think before Made Hoops came along, everyone was just kind of stuck in their bubble and playing, winter sports. I mean, I'm sorry, winter leagues in their area. Whereas Made Hoops, we were exposed to kids early, and exposed to like different talent, different styles of coaching early. And like for me, I really had to like Made Hoops is the first tournament where I felt like I really needed to scout. Like I didn't want to lose to such and such. So I had to scout for Michael Carter Williams, then turn around and scout for, New Jersey Sparks and having Zoe Brooks back in the day. So it's like if you want to win, you have to be prepared for the next, thing. So you move on from that win or loss very quickly to get ready for the next one. So I think it made me a better coach. And just for the girls being exposed to that competition very early.
Yeah, well, you did some big time name dropping there, talking about having to scout
Yeah.
for MPJ. I mean, I guess any coach that has to do that has got to be on their A game at all times. Am I right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're faced with just different players just around in the East Coast. Zoe's a favorite of mine, so that's someone who I like go to often. Now we're on the same team with Philly Rise, but before that girl used to give me some nightmares. But yeah, just a lot of different girls who were super duper competitive in the circuit. Going up against Maddie McDaniel, 2024 kid who's a strong point guard. Just a lot of different kids. Can't think of them all right now, but everybody has something, to add.
Well, I mean, clearly, coach, if you're having to do scouting for players, I think some other teams are scouting some of your girls on your roster.
Yeah.
So let's talk about them for a second. Dive into your roster. What are some of your key pieces in the roster you've assembled so far this year?
This year, Kendall Williams is a strong player for us. Carmen McDuffie, Sam Donovan for us for the eighth grade. One of my go-to players on that team is a girl, Miley. She's just kind of that silent workhorse who continues to work. And our seventh grade team is actually doing really well. They had a tough loss against a team called TSF, Naomi Kaldovsky, I mean, when she shoots, I just feel like it's a layup. It's one of those. Coach Lucky has them coached up well with a lot of energy. Kaden McDaniel's a strong player for them. Kaden Tadero, Kalia, they all just have really good pieces. Ify, I actually coach her older sister, Kennedy Ume, but Ify Ume plays for Coach Lucky's seventh grade team. So they have a strong team.
Wow. Wow. Dang, you got some
Yeah.
real. You listen, if you got a player on there, you can just give her the ball and hey, just shoot 30 times. Just
Oh yeah, I feel that confident in her stroke. Yep.
that definitely does to it. All right, so look, let's talk about this, coach, because nowadays we've seen in basketball, your swag and how you walk into a gym, your presence is everything. Now, look, your reputation at the league is someone who's look when you step in the gym, people got to know that man, Coach T's fit is on point. I gotta ask too, because look, I'm trying to get my fit better. But what goes into your decision-making process when you're getting ready for a Made Hoops event weekend?
I would be lying to you.
I don't want to interrupt, but for the record, I put in this question because I knew you would love this question.
It's a good one, Rob. It's a good one, baby.
I would be lying to you guys if I said that I don't put thought into it. I do. But I do what's comfortable. Like I'm not the coach that you're gonna find wearing a whole bunch of tight stuff. That's for more so weekend purposes or on a date or something. But I'm comfortable, but I'm swaggy. Like I like to feel good.
I love it. Rob, let me ask you a question really quickly. Since you're on air, man, do you think that Coach T's fit and her swag has a direct correlation to their success on the court? I mean, I got to ask you, bro, because clearly if she's winning dress-wise and she's winning on court-wise, what do you think, Rob?
You gotta, what do they say? You gotta look good to feel good. And I mean, if you're feeling good, then you're confident. So if you have the confidence, that relays down to your girls. And I mean, now you have a confident team that's rolling and has one loss in 2 years when she was the head coach there. So I think it all speaks to itself.
Yep.
No, that's no without question. Well, look, Coach T, thanks for your time. We got one last question for you. You've spent a lot of time developing as a coach, and we talked about that earlier. But how have you improved as a coach since your first ever stop here at the league?
Well, like I said, I was really introduced with having to be able to scout, and I feel like that's one of my best attributes as a coach now. What also has improved since I had my first stop was film. Like I dive so much into film now, it's insane. Not just, another opponent, but what I can do, what can improve. And then the last thing I would say is I use a football terminology, but it's called 2-minute warning. So a lot of close games that made hoops, I think I've gotten better at knowing who has the next jump ball, who is the other team's worst foul shooter, how many timeouts do I have, and what are my fouls to give. And I make sure that my assistant coaches know, hey, I need to know my 2-minute warnings. If we're up by one or down by one. I've just gotten better at that, just my overall growth. So,
man, fantastic. Coach T, we appreciate you stopping by and hanging out for
Thank you.
Session. Absolutely. Everyone, thanks for tuning in. I'm Austin Smith, joined by my guy, Rob Noonan, and this is Coach Talen Watson. She is the head coach of the Maryland Bells 14 Ball Club, and she also spends time assisting the Philly Rise as well. Thank you all for tuning in. Stay tuned because we'll be back. We're back for part 2 of episode 1 of the Made Hoops podcast. I'm your host, Austin Smith, and I'm joined right now by my good brother, Mr. Rob Noonan. And if you don't know Rob, look, you're tuned in for a very special episode today because Rob Noonan is our event director and scout for Made Hoops. Rob, first things first, brother, how are you feeling up in New York today?
Appreciate it, Austin. No, I'm happy to be here in New York. It's a little chilly up here. Just had a car alarm go off for about 10 minutes, so we had a little bit delay on the podcast side till that car alarm went off. But no, we're all good up here. How are you?
Man, I'm good. Atlanta is a little bit different from New York in terms of weather, obviously. But I think the car alarm is like the most New York thing that happens. Like that was perfect timing. I mean, it had to have been. So look, let's get right to it, Rob. We got a lot to discuss, but let's go ahead and talk about the 8th grade league so far. From your perspective, who's the best 8th grade team you've seen so far in the league this season?
So it's a pretty easy answer up until this point. I'm going with Team Takeover. Ron James does a great job with his group, and he has for the last 2 years. I think actually up to date, I don't know exactly what number and but they haven't lost up until this point since maybe 2 years ago. So, I mean, we just spoke to Talen, obviously, and she's the most winningest coach in Made Hoops. But if Ron continues this streak and wins Made Hoops this year, then they're going to be tied for the most championships. So I'm going to go with them, and I think they're the best team with the best player in the country in Jordan Jackson, and we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
But I also might even go a step further, and obviously I run both of these leagues on both sides of the country. So speaking to date, I would say that they're the best team in the country with the best player in the country. Now,
Okay.
I mean, that could change once I get into the spring and we have the Spring Girls League in Dallas, Indy, Arkansas, and Orlando. But to this point, it's takeover or nothing really with across the country.
Okay. Who else do you like then in the country as our top teams?
So on our West League, we do have Cal Swish. They've done a tremendous job. With Sherry over there, and I mean, you have the Mob and Aaron Thorne and Juju. The Mob is a very, very underrated team, and they had a very productive session 3 going undefeated and beating Cal Storm and Cal Swish back-to-back games. So I mean, they're never to be overlooked. They've been kind of doing it at this rate for the last 2 years as well. On the East Coast, obviously, Philly Bells are making a huge impact, and Coach Kev has done a great job, and they actually have some younger pieces on that team. But aside from that, the last team that's in the mix on the East Coast is Team Thrill, who just came in session 2 and went 5-0. So, I mean, between all them, it's going to be a race to the finish, especially for championship weekend. I'm excited to see, what kicks off and who it's not solely Takeover's league, but I think these teams do have a shot, and I think that's going to make for a very interesting championship weekend.
No, I agree without question. I mean, obviously, as weekends go on, obviously competition starts to step up a little bit. Players want to win. And again, it just gets deeper and deeper in terms of the intensity level. So I'm interested to see how session 3 does ultimately come up in that East Coast Girls League. That'll be really good for us to see here at May Hoops. Let's talk about this now. I want to talk about individual players. Who are some of the clear-eyed stars of the 8th grade league so far?
So, like I just said, Jordan Jackson, her versatility, and really what puts her at the top spot in the country right now, prospect-wise, she's been terrific.
Yeah.
Along with, Takeover does have a ton of girls in that team.
Right.
Sydney Savory is another one who was on Michigan Storm, who's another team in contention for a title. Sydney's actually a 7th grader that has an offer from Ohio State. She also has a brother, Jaden Savory, who played in our league last year. So a common thing I do is, I tell the mom, who's the better player? I ask Sid, who's the better player? Jaden, all of them. I'm asking, who's beating who, and unbiasedly, they all pick themselves.
Nah, I get that. That means clearly, if you're going to ask a player who they think is the best, they're going to say themselves. But definitely, I can see that family dynamic having a little competition without question. And you mentioned one pretty interesting thing again is that Sydney is a 7th grader playing up. And obviously, you got players that are playing up and still dominating. That speaks to their work ethic and the things they're able to accomplish. But we're still need to be in the 7th grader. Let's talk about a few 7th graders who, I guess, what team has stood out the most to you from the league as far as the 7th grade Blue League?
So actually, there are still some 7th graders that are playing up in the 8th grade league. I mean, you obviously, like I just mentioned, you have Sydney. You also have Candace Samuels, who's playing with Takeover, and Ryan Carter. Ryan Carter is also another 7th grader for the Philly Bells, who is, I mean, there are a lot of these teams that have one very good staple 7th grader who plays up. I think girls play up more than the boys do, and they play up even more grades. I mean, you'll see going into the spring, you'll have girls in 8th grade playing 16U. For example, we had one of our girls in the West League last year, Destiny Noonan, they call her Kai Shi, because of Kyrie and that whole dynamic out in Arizona. So she played with Cal Sparks 16U as an 8th grader.
Wow. Well, I mean, you call him, if you got a nickname Kashi, I mean, clearly she got there killing. We'll leave that at that.
She can hoop.
Absolutely. We talked a little bit about Jordan Jackson earlier. Another name in particular I want to bring up and get your feedback on is Sarah Muir. Tell me about her. Obviously, we know that she can score at 3 levels, but what did you see from her with MCW Stars?
So MCW Stars had a very, very good weekend, and she was a huge part of that. From what I remember, I think she had like 15, 18, and 17 in 3 of their games. So she was one of, like, they played well session 1, but she took a huge leap session 2, and therefore her team took a huge leap session 2, and they gave a lot of teams some issues session 2.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, she's definitely one to keep an eye on. And again, with those point totals, I mean, she's pouring in buckets left and right. So definitely one we will keep an eye on going forward. Let's move to this segment here, because I want to ask you one pretty cool thing about your dynamic, Rob, is that you're on both sides, right? You cover guys and you cover girls. And the pretty cool thing to see trend-wise over the past few years is how women's basketball, how girls basketball has continued to blossom. What do you like most personally, man, about building the girls' size of events?
The girls' side is cool. They're very more receptive and thankful than the boys. Like, if I give a standout, like, they message me back like, thank you. And then, like, if I, do that for a kid on the guy's side, they're like, okay, thanks, like, whatever. Like they might not even like it or share it.
Yeah.
But the girls are very thankful, and I think, people obviously have overlooked the girls space for a long time. And the platform that we're providing with 126,000 followers and putting girls on the main stage, and you have teams from No Wasted Reps in New Hampshire to Lady Knox Ballers in Florida, to Team Elite in Georgia, just on the East Coast. And the West Coast, you have teams from Arizona, Cali, Washington, and Oregon.
Yeah.
So now you're kind of paving that way of, okay, we have 2 very elite platforms, and this girls space is just going up, at a rapid rate.
Nah, I love it, man. Listen, it's been interesting to see. Again, you talked about being here in Atlanta. Obviously, we know about the TSF, and obviously we know about Team Elite as well. And just seeing those programs blossom. And you talked about a program like, even we're talking with Coach T of Maryland Bells. And it's just been amazing to see, without question, how girls basketball has continued to grow, how it's continued to I guess you can just say, man, reach beyond the surface area, social media wise as well. It's been pretty dope to see, man. And we're grateful for people like you, Rob, who help these girls get a platform, man, and showcase their talents. The last one for you, Rob. What's the furthest distance a team has come from this year into play in the East Leagues? Like, we know travel basketball is travel basketball, but sometimes these teams really do have to travel. So who's the furthest team that's come to play in the league this year?
So it's definitely Lady Knox Ballers with Kevin Knox Sr. Obviously, well, he would have to come up to New York a lot because his son was on the Knicks. He just got traded to the Hawks.
Right.
So now he's a little bit closer to home, and he's originally a Tampa kid. So that makes things easier for him. But again, No Wasted Reps from New Hampshire. On the boys side, we even had a team from Maine last year.
Wow.
So teams, actually, even a step further on the West Coast, we had a team from Hawaii play in our league.
Wow.
So we do really have teams come from all over to play in Made Hoops.
I love it. Well, Rob, let me ask you one final question, man. I'll throw this one in there. What can everyone expect going forward with these upcoming events for the rest of the season, man? Give us just a quick, brief snapshot of what you see happening.
You're going to see all, more growth from the Made Hoops brand overall. You're going to see a girls' spring league. Our boys' spring league's taking year 2. You're going to see an 8th grade finale or just an overall finale for the girls in July at Boo Williams. So you're going to see a national championship. You're going to see a spring league. So more room for growth and improvement and all those aspects to go into my 4th year next year. This will be my 3rd year. So the 4th year, and just keep progressing and getting better every year.
I love it. Rob, thanks for your time, man. Everyone, thanks for tuning in to this part 2 of episode 1 of the Made Hoop podcast. I'm your host, Austin Smith. This is my guy, Rob Noonan. He's our event director here at Made Hoops, and he also one of our lead scouts. Rob, thank you for everything you do, brother. Your insight is truly valued, man, and keep doing a phenomenal job putting these young men and young women on the map. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. This concludes episode 1 of the Made Hoops podcast. Stay with us. Stay tuned. Stay locked in all season. We'll see you guys on episode number